the 3-7 New York Football Jets head towards Week 11, there's good news out of Florham Park, where head coach Jeff Ulbrich says the team is going to start working on tackling. I'm Glenn Nutt with Jet Nation Radio, JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of the most active Jets message board on the web. So in case you missed it earlier today, Jeff Ulbrich met with the media, and the Jets missed 20 tackles last week. Right? We've talked about it during the week. I believe we mentioned it after the game. It was a topic on the message boards at JetNation.com. The tackling has been horrendous. And Jeff Ulbrich apparently has had enough. Did a demonstration today. Ulbrich, the former linebacker / special teamer, did for the whole team. Everybody, offense, defense, everybody was in there learning how to tackle or being reminded how to tackle. And that's what the team is going to work on. Fully padded, I assume, going to the ground. Maybe not on every single play, but I assume a bit of that. But, I mean, I don't even, what do you say at this point? You were hoping a team you were hoping would be fighting for a playoff spot in a Super Bowl run is going back to training camp drills with Week 11 approaching. And stuff like this isn't generally a big deal. You don't care if you're winning. Like if this team was heading to the playoffs right now. Oh, audio's bad. Thanks for the heads up there, Wild Wave. Take a look here. All right. Hopefully that's better. How are we doing, Wild Wave? If you've been watching, you know this mic has been giving me a hard time. The last 4 or 5 shows have been fun. It's been great. But Jesus Christ, I spent a fortune on this damn thing less than a year ago. Might have to buy another one. What a pain in the ass. Anyway, as I was saying, Jeff Ulbrich, Week 11, down just around the corner, and a team that you thought was going to the Super Bowl, or you hoped was going to the Super Bowl, is going back to basics. Which in a normal season, or not, I shouldn't even say a normal season, if you were anywhere close to the goals you had set out at the beginning of the season, if you were in, technically in one of those, if the playoffs started tomorrow, the Jets would be in, and you were going back to tackling, you kind of live with it because you're like, all right, freshen up, sharpen up, the stretch run is coming, and you want to get up, make sure you're on your P's and Q's. But when you just stink and you're not doing anything right on offense, on defense, when you hear that the team is going back to working on training camp stuff, man, it's like this team just it's like they want you to stop watching, like they want you to stop being a fan, just short of expectations when the expectations are high. They meet expectations when the expectations are low. So credit where credit's due. When you think the Jets are going to suck, they do. It's only when you think they're going to be good that they also suck. But that's when they miss the mark. So Ulbrich, I don't even know. I had the breakdown earlier with the PFF numbers, and it's like, who cares who's missing them? You're missing 20 damn tackles. Everybody's missing them. Jamie Sherwood, as good as he's been, he had like 13, 14 tackles. Might have even had 17 this week. I think this week was a season and career high for him. But he had 3 or 4 misses. I think Jalen Mills had some misses. Quinnen may have had some. Again, a bunch of guys not tackling. So it's just to see that as the sort of storyline of, here's what the Jets are doing this week in practice. All you can do is shake your head and know that the season, I said the season was over a couple weeks ago. I know there were still some people holding out hope, and there would still be. I still see people looking at the map. Hey, mathematically, you're still in it. Kyler Murray just completed 22 out of 24 passes against you. And you had no answer for him. And look, Kyler Murray, good player, fine. But you're not exactly talking about a first ballot Hall of Famer MVP type quarterback. This is a guy who hasn't done a whole lot, or at least hasn't done anywhere near what he did the other day against the Jets. Absolutely embarrassed that defense. And the Jets really have no one else to blame but themselves. Are the players checked out? I mean, you hate to question stuff like that, or you hate to have to ask that question. But when you miss 20 tackles and you only force the opposing quarterback to have 2 passes hit the ground, how hard are you really working? I mean, and it's not even to me, it's not even that the effort looked like it was lacking. It was more execution than effort. But what are you doing in practice? Are you practicing hard, knowing that your season's over? I think, again, even people were saying that, oh, the Jets, the Colts and Broncos lost earlier in the day, so the Jets had a shot. Maybe they didn't believe that. Wild Wave says he's surprised JD is still here. Figured Woody would part ways. Wonder what's the it's almost like what's the point right now? What is your general manager doing right now that's going to change anything? I think Joe D is gone. Um, you know, brought in some good talent. Coaches didn't get much out of it, so he'll move on. They'll bring in the next guy. I assume it'll be another Idzik or McCagnon type guy. They'll bring in somebody who's in over their head. Can't pick a player. But that's just that's what this organization does. Douglas, for all the losing, brought in some talent, unlike the previous GMs. And I would imagine the future GM won't be a lot different because I can't see a lot of general managers banging down the door to, head coach and general manager, right? The prevailing, everyone always say, oh, there's only 32 teams. There's only 32 teams. Right. There's only so many job openings and there's only so many desirable positions. So you would imagine there will be 6 or 7 job openings for head coaches. And there will be 3 or 4 really hot candidates, as there usually are. And in all likelihood, none of those guys are going to choose the Jets. And it won't matter. Look, it's as I said the other day, I allowed myself to get, sort of pulled back into believing like, oh, maybe they'll be good now because you got Aaron Rodgers and you've got all this talent. And they still find a way to stink. Like you're literally worse than you were with Zach Wilson. That I don't even. There's no words for that. You went from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers and got worse, record wise. And I know some of the circumstances are different. The defense is worse, but I don't care. Aaron Rodgers is supposed to make up for that. Aaron Rodgers, are you going to tell me that he's not supposed to be 2 touchdowns a game better than Zach Wilson? I would say he is. And what the running game should bring. Which, by the way, I wanted to mention that offensive line, recent weeks, last 5 weeks, much better, much better. This is a unit. I tweeted this the other day. This is a group they got to work to keep intact, minus Tyron Smith. Let Olu take over at left tackle. Keep Simpson, keep Tippmann. AVT's coming back. He's got the 1 year, or he's got the 5th year option that the Jets exercise. And then either Moses, Carter, Warren, let those guys battle it out. Maybe even bring in another tackle through the draft. There are some good ones in this class. But this offensive line over the last 5 weeks, Breece Hall is averaging over 5 yards a carry. And Aaron Rodgers is getting sacked once every 17 dropbacks. And if you're watching Aaron Rodgers, some of those sacks are on him. If you've watched him throughout the season, some of those sacks have been on the tight ends. So in terms of like the O-line, just the O-lineman, it's actually a number I should have looked up. I went to PFF and I looked up how many sacks they've allowed as a team. I should have just highlighted O-lineman or just counted them up and see how many of the O-linemen have given up in the last 5 weeks because it's gotten a lot better. So this O-line took a little while to gel, but now they've, I'm not saying they've peaked, but they've gotten to a point now where Aaron Rodgers can expect that far more often than not, he's going to have time to throw. And Breece Hall should expect there will be some holes there for him to get through to pick up positive yards. And this group, keep it intact. The next GM, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow night on Tomorrow Night Show. Myself, Dylan Terman, Chris Schubert. We're going to go over some of the talent on this roster, the trade chips, basically. Who might you move? Who's untouchable? Who would you consider trading? What's some of the compensation you could expect for some of the top players when the new GM comes in? And you would assume he's going to want a bunch of picks. I mean, every GM does. And Wild Wave says put Tyron on injured reserve. I said earlier, and I've been saying this about C.J. Mosley for a couple of weeks now, right? That I think maybe this is sort of the Jets not wanting to bench him and just saying, hey, look, Jamie Sherwood's younger, faster, better player right now. We don't want to bench you because we have a lot of respect for you. So we're just gonna let's call this an injury and put you on IR. They haven't done that yet, but he's missed a few weeks and then he came back and then he was on the field for one play and he's been out for a couple weeks since then. And now Tyron Smith got smoked the other night, gave up another sack. And I said right after that sack, I tweeted out, like, how much longer can you stick with this guy? How long before you go to Olu? You took Olu with the 11th pick, and this guy, Tyron Smith, all the respect in the world for the career he's had, but he's not been good as a Jet. Sure enough, second half kicks off. Tyron Smith is out of the game. Olu's in there, and they say Tyron Smith has a stinger. He's got a neck. And it just made me think instantly of Mosley, of like, is this a case where you have two guys, Mosley, Hall of Famer, not sure, but definitely, no denying CJ Mosley is absolute upper echelon, upper tier player at this position for a very long time. Tyron Smith, first ballot Hall of Famer. So is this the team disrespectfully saying you guys aren't really going to be playing much anymore, but we're going to call it an injury? I don't know. I'm not saying I know that to be the case. That would be my guess. Wild Wave says he thinks the Johnsons love Joe Douglas. I think the comments from Woody a few weeks ago that I mentioned saying this is the most talented team we've had since I've been here, that is high praise. But I think the Johnsons do, Woody especially, Woody does give in and cave to the mob a lot. We've seen him not hire coaches, even with firing Rex. And look, I loved Rex, but even I kind of got to the point where I was like, I think it's time for him to go, just because the fan base was, the act had gotten old. He wasn't winning. Now, granted, you linked him with John Idzik, who did not belong in that job as an NFL general manager. Complete failure. Worst GM I've seen in my life. So you strip the team of the talent, which guess what happens when you strip the team of the talent? You lose. So Rex obviously went downhill, and stop with the rumors of him coming back. You can't do that. But with Rex, I was told at the time by someone who was in the locker room. This is a long time ago, obviously, because it was right before the firing. And they told me they said Woody doesn't want to fire Rex. Like, he loves him, but he, it's sort of, he's got no choice at this point. And he might feel the same way with Joe Douglas. A lot of people coming down on him. A lot of people, and I get the record is bad, but I mean, I'm not going to go over it a million times. I've already said it a million times. Like, if you expected Joe Douglas to win in his first couple of years, then you're living on another planet. Go back and look at that roster. I looked at it the other day. I forget. I was looking at a specific position. I forget what for. But you seeing the names, you're going down the list, and it's like, oh my God, Vincent Smith. Like, we thought that guy was going to be a contributor, because all you had was Robbie Anderson. Like, the team was just terrible, devoid of talent. But this roster, not devoid of talent, lots of it. And so for the next GM, whoever comes in, is he going to trade these guys? Is he going to keep, like I said, I say keep the O-line intact. But Aaron Rodgers, and I tweeted this earlier, and I didn't mean like literally and publicly and overtly, but how big of a role is Aaron Rodgers going to have in helping find this next coach if Aaron Rodgers is back? I'm assuming Rodgers will be back. There was a story today, and again, this we'll cover tomorrow on Jet Nation Radio. I think it's a conversation, a good discussion for multiple people to go through. But we'll talk about this rumor that Devontae Adams only agreed to come to the Jets if Aaron Rodgers was going to be here next year. So it looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to be here next year. So with that being the case, how involved do you let Aaron Rodgers get in his head coaching search? Because you're not going to not consult with Rodgers. I mean, you're going to go out and hire Mike McCarthy? That ain't happening. That's not something that Woody's not going to do that, or Chris, whoever. Now there's talk that Woody will join the Trump administration, but there was a story the other day. I think I mentioned this. U Stadium said that Woody plans on hanging around long enough to help, not to help, but Woody plans on hanging around long enough to hire the new coach before he goes. Whoever's doing the hiring, they're not bringing in Mike McCarthy. Like, Aaron Rodgers would certainly have some say there. So how much say do you let him have? you're talking about a quarterback who's, if he comes back next year, which again, it does look like he will, but you're talking about a guy who's probably back for 1 year. So do you let him have a hand in selecting the next head coach who you're hoping is going to be here for 6, 7, 8, 9 years? They won't. They'll be fired before that. New Jersey Lawrence said Woody is going to sell this as Rodgers 3.0. Yeah. I don't know how Woody won't have to worry about selling it. Woody will hang around for now, pick the coach, and then go off. We're assuming go off to whatever country he's ambassadoring for. I'm gonna guess Ireland. It's it's like he doesn't have to learn a language. It's right across the pond from where he was last time. He's familiar with this part of the world. One of the Rooney owners, Steelers owners, was the Ireland ambassador, if I'm not mistaken, at one point. I could be wrong about that. I could be completely making that up. But for some reason, that's in my head that one of the Rooneys was the Bahamas, says Lauren. The Bahamas ambassador. That'd be pretty funny, wouldn't it? So yeah, it's not, when I said this earlier, you see it there. I don't mean Rodgers being the guy who's picking the head coach, but I think he's going to have some pretty significant say, because even if he says he's coming back, you think he's coming back if you're bringing a head coach he doesn't want to play for? Yeah, then he can just walk away. Why would he hang around for that? There's no reason for it. Wild Wave says he's coming over here. You think back to England? You think so? You think Woody's going to re-ambassadorize? I'm sure that's not a word. Has anyone ever done that? I don't follow politics closely enough to know if there's like repeat ambassadors. Two-time defending UK ambassador. Give him a little Lombardi trophy on it with the UK inscribed on it. Would he come over carrying his trophy and pumping his fist? Yeah, I have no idea if that could possibly be a thing. Not so sure. Woody and I run in the same circles, so I don't know that I would ever run into him. But listen, wherever he goes, if he goes, the rumor is that he's going to hire the head coach before he leaves. And I can't imagine he's going to do that without touching base with Aaron Rodgers and saying, how do you feel about this guy? How do you feel about that guy? And the question I'm wondering is, just how much clout is it going to be? Aaron, give me your thoughts, and I'll take it with a grain of salt. Or is it going to be, all right, Aaron, what do you think? And this is going to have some heavy sway, or you're going to have some heavy sway on whether or not we do this. Ed the Red says, who in their right mind would want to come to the Jets with Woody Johnson all over? Good point, Ed. I've mentioned that. And this is why I don't think they'll get a top candidate. That's why I don't think they'll get a guy like Todd Monken, right? Like that's the guy I want. I was a big Monken guy a few years ago. And like I said, when I'm wrong, and I'll say it. Matt Rule. Those are the two guys I wanted. I wanted either Matt Rule or Todd Monken. Rule, of course, went to the Panthers where he stunk. And Monken went back to college where he was amazing. And now he's back in the pros helping Lamar Jackson win MVPs. I'm assuming he's going to win another one this year. Don't count out Baker, though. Baker Mayfield doing a nice job. So in-demand coaches, in-demand GMs are, at least in my opinion, it's going to be hard to get them here. Wild Wave says it'll be a first-time head coach, probably, or hopefully Aaron Glenn. Listen, as I've said a couple times, if it has to be a defensive guy, then give me Aaron Glenn. Absolutely. But I just can't see it. I mean, again, it's possible they'll have a lack of options. It's possible there'll be, there won't be enough guys that want to come here. Aaron Glenn might want to come here since this is where he played. But I'd be shocked if they don't go heavy after an offensive guy. Lauren says, the only coaches who would come here are bozos like Saleh. Important to remember, though, even though Saleh was a tremendous flop here, he was a guy who was heavily in demand. Even though he was a first timer, Woody pretty much only hires first timers. Chris, of course, hired Gase, who was a retread, and what a Disaster that was from the word go. Terrible call by Christopher there. But yeah, Woody will hang around, probably be your first time guy. But if the top offensive guys turn him down, and if Aaron Rodgers can't help lure an offensive mind, I mean, I would find that hard to believe. This is why I think Rodgers will have some sway, significant sway. I think he'll probably end up reaching out to somebody he knows well, who impressed him as a coach on the offensive side of the ball. Just not McCarthy. And God, who would want that guy anyway? I know he's got a good record and he got a ring and all that, but it's been a very long time, since he was a guy that was that sort of cutting edge top coach, top tier guy that he was many years ago. Again, the sad part is he's better than anyone the Jets have had in a very, very long time, but still not. And with Rodgers, he's not coming, so that's not a thing. Ed the Red says Rodgers is the reason why we're in the shit that we're in. The influence he has had on Woody Johnson signing all his washed up buddies, Lazard, Adams, and don't start me on Hackett. Well, Lazard having a career year. Yes, he had 3 drops against Minnesota. I get that. But Lazard's actually having a really nice year. Adams has been mostly invisible. My issue, Ed, is more with the guys I signed last year. Bringing in Turner and Cook and Cobb. Like, that was like a washed up bunch of dudes that Rodgers liked, and all failed. Lazard was the only one, even though he was bad last year. Lazard was the only one, and I said it at the time, he was the only one that made sense. You could have justifiably said, even if Aaron Rodgers wasn't coming here, bringing in Lazard is something you could see them attempting to do because of the fact that he was bad receiver market in free agency. And so that's kind of made him the best of a bad bunch, but that move made sense. But yeah, the Rodgers the really bad moves were last year. Lauren says you can't have a first-time head coach. Let's see, because you end up with the excuses. Yeah, you can't. It's that's so Brian Costello say earlier. Matt Nagy is his prediction. I think it's a little early, but Matt Nagy is a guy who works the offensive side and probably won't be in very heavy demand. I could be wrong about that, though. How he's viewed in league circles. I'm not going to pretend I know that. Wild Wave says we don't need Aaron to reach out. Lawrence says Woody gave him, or Chris Johnson. Woody gave Rodgers the power. They did. Ed the Red. Listen, I talked about Rex a minute ago. I love Rex, but you look at the way things went in Buffalo once he left here. It just doesn't happen. Seriously, serious question. Can anyone think of a time an NFL team brought back a high-profile coach who they fired previously? If George Steinbrenner owned the Jets, I'm sure that would have happened a few times. But an NFL head coach, like a high-profile guy, fired as the head coach and brought back a few years later. I can't see it. But I did think that earlier today, and the reason you gave, what you put at the end there, as I was thinking about how nobody is going to want this job, I thought to myself, Rex would want it. Rex would want it. Rex is high. There's a lot of people who don't like Rex, but there's a lot of people who do. So that might help sell you some tickets. It would fix the defense, presumably. But I'm not sitting here advocating for it. I'm just saying that was a thought that popped in my head. Like, if nobody wants this job, but they want a known, recognizable name that'll sell some tickets, that's where the Rex. It's like, maybe it's not as crazy as it sounds. I think it's pretty nuts, though. I don't think so. Yeetus Deletus, I could see Rodgers trying to lure Vrabel. Could be. I don't know. I don't know what Vrabel and Rodgers' relationship is like, but if they have one and Aaron wants him, I could absolutely see him trying to get him in here. Nagy is horrible, says Lauren. He's been pretty bad, hasn't he? And that was my first thought when I saw that. The thing is, though, a lot of the best coaches in the NFL, or historically, there's so many good coaches who failed their first time around. Like, you need to coach, fail, and have a couple of years to think about what you did wrong and make some tweaks and adjustments and improvements. That's why that's why I thought it was bad for Rex to go to Buffalo. Bad for bringing in Gase was bad. I think coaches need a year or so to reflect and like go get a little demotion, maybe even be out of the league for a little bit, and kind of go through in their head, self course correct, go through and watch film and look at what you did and what can you do better and what changes do you need to make. So I think maybe Nagy's done that. Maybe being a head coach who got fired, then you take a lower position and you take the time to figure out exactly what you're doing. So Nagy has been horrible. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just thinking out loud. Could it be a situation where he worked through some of his issues? Teague says Gruden was brought back. We're not with the same team. Well, yeah, Oakland, right? But I mean, that was a different owner. I mean, I know it was the son, but it wasn't Al Davis. Al Davis let him go, and then was it Mark Davis brought him back years later? Much longer gap. But you're right, though. You're right. Gruden did come back to the same team. Different owner. And let's face it, and I don't know Mark Davis personally, but not the Raiders aren't exactly known for making stable, logical decisions. But either way, that is a good point. I forgot Gruden. Someone mentioned him. I wonder if because he was with the Packers, right? But I think he was there during the Favre years. I don't think he had a relationship with Rodgers as a coach player. I think Gruden was an assistant on some of those teams. I could be wrong. Some of those Bill Wall Street guys, Holmgren and Reed and Gruden and all those guys. Let's see. Lawrence says problem with Nagy's he's like Gase. Success was all under Reed. He's like the enemy. Yeah, that's the thing, right? And look what the enemy's doing now. Do you consider him? I mean, I would definitely more so now than before, because before I had the same thought process. Like, it's the same way I felt with the Jets defensive assistants under Rex when he was here. I was like, are you really a hot candidate if you're working under Rex Ryan? Like, he's the mad scientist. It's his scheme. Rex would say that he let those guys call plays and alternate and take turns, and maybe they really were. And that would actually be kind of a brilliant thing because it helps you avoid trends and becoming predictable because you're letting everyone have a little, piece of the pie and everybody letting their preferences, letting their approach be a part of the game day, not even just planning, but part of the game plan on Sundays. So when I think of Bieniemy, when I think of Nagy, I think of these guys who are, like you're under Andy Reid. He's probably the guy doing it. But like I said, Bieniemy, he's kind of doing a phenomenal job with the Commanders. So unless there's a reason, because the thing with Bieniemy, he always felt like he deserved the job. And again, even having said being under Reid and questioning that, other guys do get jobs when they're in positions where they might not be the guy. And we don't know this because we're not in huddles, we're not in the locker rooms. But the thing with Bieniemy, I felt like he put himself in a position where somebody surely was going to offer him a head coaching position. And the fact that nobody was, and I know LaShawn McCoy trashed him, but you kind of take that with a grain of salt because it was the end of McCoy's career when he wasn't getting playing time, so he was mad at Bieniemy. So I think that was more personal than professional. But I always just wondered, I'm like, this guy, he's done enough to get more consideration than he's getting. Even though it's again, there is the Andy Reid thing, and it's the same thing is in place now that it's Nagy. But I always wonder because I think there was an incident. I mean, it's a million years ago when he was a player. But he had like an altercation with a meter maid cop or something, and I don't know if it got physical. And I'm not even saying that is the reason. I'm in my head. I'm trying to think, why isn't this guy getting more consideration? I completely forgot about that, Lauren. Great call. It is Kingsbury. Why did but see, I wasn't, the other day I Googled that and it said Bieniemy. The Google results said Bieniemy was the OC. Because I remember thinking like, oh, he's not there anymore. Or is he there but not the OC? Did he get demoted? I would have that I literally looked it up because I wasn't sure. And the Google result said Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. Was he somewhere else and I'm just mixing up teams? I thought he went to Washington. Yeah, let me see what comes up. Eric Bieniemy, what does this say? I forgot he went to UCLA. Did someone say that yet? I obviously completely forgot. Yeah, I just saw that take. Just looked at I'm now reading it. I remember that from the offseason. But I think when I pulled it up the other day, I just offensive coordinator jumped out at me. Yeah, my bad. Hugely my bad. How's UCLA's offense looking this year? Serious question. I haven't watched a whole lot of. I did watch Cal the other day. Cal's got some good players on offense. Their quarterback's interesting. What did I just watch? Just watch Cal, Iowa, I believe. No, and Cal Wake Forest. That one I watched live the other day. I'm going to rewatch that in a little bit because that was a barn burner, nail biter, whatever you want to call it. Lots of offense, lots of points being scored. So yeah, drop the ball. Bad job, Glenn, on the Eric Bieniemy call. So he's not in Washington tearing it up where I thought he was. He's at UCLA, and I'm gonna watch some more college tonight, and I'm gonna find a good UCLA game to watch and see how Bieniemy's looking there. Yeah, Teague said that. So either way, whether it's Bieniemy, again, how he's doing there, I don't know. Kingsbury, obviously, and another one with Kingsbury, right? Goes from college to the pros, fails as a head coach in Arizona, gets now a coordinator position, back to calling plays, and doing so. I mean, having tremendous success. I would imagine he's a guy who's gonna get some interviews, and maybe he's and I have seen his name as people. I have seen people mention him as possibly as the Jets' next head coach. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Still got some games left this year. Like I'm moving on. I'm ready to talk draft as if it's gonna matter. We'll do this thing where we pretend something might change. We'll carry on this charade where we pretend that there's some chance in the football universe that the Jets will select and sign the right players and become good and win something. Nah, I don't. I say it all the time. I feel like I should say it every show. For those of you in the States with tickets that you can go watch this football team and get something out of it. And by that, I don't mean the football. I mean the tailgating, the camaraderie, the friends, the good times, which does not include the football game. Man, enjoy it. Because I'll tell you what, when you're a million miles away or you're 3,475 miles away, there's nothing in it for you. This team just stinks. They stink all week. They stink at night. They stink. Doesn't matter if they play day game, night game, short rest, long rest. They just stink. And that's what you do. You wait over to the play. They get their heads kicked in. And then that's the end of it. At least, for those of you lucky enough to go and enjoy your fellow Jets fans and get some joy in following this team, man, take advantage of it and appreciate it. And know that there's a lot of fans that you get nothing. You get nothing out of following this team. Aggravation, probably heart problems. Let's see. Should a walkout of fans in MetLife get Woody attention? Because certainly needed. Ed, I don't think it will. I mean, there's been years where I've walked out of that stadium with fans of other teams chanting their team's names and slogans and JETS suck and all that, and nothing. It's like just Woody gets his money either way, And I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't want to win, but I don't think I don't think this stuff affects them. I don't. I think media coverage does. I think when the press gets loud enough, when social media maybe a little bit, but the stadium, the attendance, all that, they have revenue sharing. All the owners are making money hand over fist, whether one fan shows up or you sell out. Does Woody not being here for 4 years help? I don't know. Last time Woody wasn't here for 4 years, they hired Adam Gase. So what happened to Frank Reich? Reich never did a whole lot. He had a couple of good moments, but yeah, Lauren says with Christopher, it's worse. I mean, it's tough to say, Lauren, right? Because Christopher really had the one hire that, yes, it was a complete failure, but I think he's more personable. He's better with the media, better with the fans, better understanding of interacting. But neither one is good. Do they need to sell the team? They're not selling the team. Here's what I say to people all the time, and I understand the desire. I understand saying to sell the team, Woody. I look at it as, if you own the team, would you sell them? No, not in a million years. This team is going to go to one of his sons. That's all. It's gonna. My prediction. I think it's gonna be like Jerry in Dallas. I think, was it Christopher Steven, whatever, the Jones son behind him. I think he'll take over when Jerry's gone. Excuse me. And I think Woody's kid will take over here when Woody decides to step aside. Another vote for Rex Ryan. Man, I'll tell you what, I might have to do a Twitter poll on that. See how many fans are in favor of that move. I don't know. Lauren, let's see. Been a fan for 56 years, man. 37 for me. You got me beat by, I think the number of years you have on me is almost old enough to drink. That's pretty impressive. In other bad seasons, there's always games that were fun. 73, I saw Namath and Unitas. Yeah, and Unitas hook up. Two bad teams. Namath put up 496 yards. Jesus, that's a hell of a game. This year's games are close, but you've had multiple times now where Aaron Rodgers has the ball. You know what I'm sitting in the Minnesota game, and I'm like, this is it. This is why you got this guy. Ball in his hand, game on the line, closing minutes, a touchdown wins it. This is why you got him. Nothing. Following week, interception. 2 weeks in a row, interception. Blame it all. Mike Williams. What does Mike Williams do his first game with the Steelers? Game-winning touchdown. Didn't have a problem with the Steelers. Did just fine there. Yeah, you're not wrong, Lauren. These games are not fun. And Ed the Red says, genuinely think Woody and Christopher are good guys, but we have to be the worst run franchise when it comes to recruitment. And why is that? Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it, Ed? A lot of the free agents they get, even the prime guys, they seem to get a lot more sort of guys at the end of their careers that probably aren't getting a ton of offers. There have been some good ones here. DJ Reed was a good one. Quincy Williams, although he's a waiver claim, I believe, but he wasn't drafted. He wasn't a trade. I believe he was a waiver claim, but not enough good ones. The Mike Williams thing. Again, I think, who do we put that on? We're talking about Joe Douglas earlier, right? He signs Mike Williams. Mike Williams does not a single thing as a Jet for 10 weeks. He's with the Steelers for 5 minutes. He scores a game-winning touchdown. Is that Joe Douglas' fault? Or is that your coaches? Or is that your quarterback who got his favorites? And Mike Williams wasn't one of them. I mean, guys can play, they can play. And if you get a bunch of guys who can play and they don't play, then that's, I don't know. I don't know what more you want. I don't know what more you want. Let's see. It's not fair for fans to have to endure bad ownership for years. It's called life, Micro, isn't it? Life just ain't fair. And being a Jets fan sure as hell should get filed under that. What should be done is every team should go public shareholders who can have an impact. I mean, listen, that's one of those, it would be great, but it ain't happening. Owners aren't giving up what they've got. That's sort of a perfect world, right? In a perfect world, sure, but we ain't in one of those. So that's yeah. Lauren says they aren't good guys. They refuse to hire a football guy to run things. Yeah, I get that. And I've seen that on Jet Nation on the forums. People have said bring in a guru, someone to run the organization. Listen, the Dolphins brought in Bill Parcells. And what did it get them? Nothing. They stunk. With him as the football czar, head of football operations, whatever they called him. And they stunk. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I always feel like a guy like that is going to be looking like, if you're the GM, you're going to be like, that guy wants my job, or that guy's going to, draft day comes, that dude's going to tell me who to draft. I think it would cause some issues in the building. My info, I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone watching this. I love the Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone's so good. I bought like 5 seasons of it last year. Man, I'll tell you what. There was one episode, best episode as far as I'm concerned. Almost like similar to It's a Wonderful Life. And I can't remember what it's called. I actually watched it a couple months ago again. Got me going on Twilight Zone here, my info. But it was a college professor who was being fired. He'd been teaching for like a million years. He was an old guy, and they were firing him. He didn't realize it. They're like, "Oh, do you get that letter we sent you in the mail?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I got it. I'm good." But he hadn't read it, and the letter was saying they weren't going to renew him. He was being let go, and so he goes into like depression. He gets a gun. He's going to go blow his brains out. And then he goes into his classroom, and all these young men appear, and because he feels like he's worthless and he didn't achieve anything in life, and he goes into this classroom, and there's all these young men, and they who have all died since being in his class, and they tell him how the things they learned in his class helped them through their tough times. A lot of them died in war and things like that. And it kind of refreshed him and made him realize he did have an impact. And so, like I said, very much like It's a Wonderful Life in that regard. But really cool episode. I wish I could remember it. I'll try to remember it tomorrow night when we're live and throw that out there. Twilight Zone's awesome. I actually got mad. Once I got up to season 5, after that they wanted like $5 per episode. I was like, listen, I like the Twilight Zone, but I'm not laying out like $500 for it. But anyway, Twilight Zone, great stuff. That episode, Changing of the Guard. That was it. Changing of the Guard. If you like the Twilight Zone and you want to see a really good episode that you haven't seen, if you haven't seen it, check out Changing of the Guard. Micro Fox had nightmares from watching Twilight Zone as a kid. Didn't we all? Like the modern stuff from the 80s when I was a kid, it was like the Twilight Zone movie and the William Shatner episode with the monster on the wing. Man, that was terrifying. Not good stuff for kids to watch. Absolutely not. Let's see. You watched the episode where he sees everyone is weird and ugly, but in the end it was him. Is that the one with the woman when she has the plastic surgery and she's waiting the whole time for the doctors to remove the mask, and ended up being all the doctors were ugly and she was beautiful. I think that might be the one you're talking about. Back to football. You don't need a guru, but you need a GM with real power. Listen, I've wondered if the Aaron Rodgers thing, because we talked about it last year, right? That you bring in Aaron Rodgers and you tell Joe Douglas, like, get Aaron what he needs, and he's signed Dalvin Cook and signed Billy Turner and signed, Randall Cobb. Like you're using all this cap space and all these roster spots on guys that Aaron likes, but it just so happens they're not very good at football. So as a GM, are you sitting there going, what the hell am I doing here? I brought in this quarterback and now I gotta bring in everybody to make them happy. So who knows? We'll see what happens. I'll cut it now because I went a little longer than I planned, a lot longer than I planned. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Twisted says, bah. This week they learned how to tackle and forget how to breathe. Well, I hope not. I'm not that down on the team. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, wrap this one up now because tomorrow night, myself and my dog started to yell at me. Myself, Dylan Terman, Chris Schubert. Tomorrow night, we will. We're going to get into things like we'll talk a little bit about Joe Douglas. We'll talk about trade value of the assets of guys they might move. Who might they move? Who's untouchable? Who's not? And maybe talk some draft prospects because it's that time of year, Jets fans. It's draft prep time. Have a good one. I'm on Jet Nation Radio, Jet Nation Live. Check out jetnation.com, most active Jets message board on the web. Take care, Jets fans.